and passionate advocate for justice and for human rights.
That was Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein singing the praises of her running mate Ajamu Baraka during a CNN town hall in August. The international human rights activist, organizer, and political analyst is on a mission to show the Green Party is the proper pick for this election. He joins us right here on News 1 Now TV 1. I'm glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
How do you make the case that in an election where folks say it's a choice between Trump and Clinton, how do you make the case that they should cast a vote for Jill Stein and yourself, and it's not a wasted vote?
We say that if you believe in democracy, if you believe in choice, if you believe in real fundamental change, then the only place to go and the only support that you should give is to the Green Party ticket. So we say that our argument is very simple. That if you believe that we have a responsibility to our people, a responsibility to the future, a responsibility to disconnect from the corrupt politics of the status quo, then we have to have the courage to make some courageous decisions, which means we have to break from the two-party monopoly.
But how do you expand the Green Party message where you're above 2%? You look at the current polling data. Politico has a new poll out at Clinton at 42, Trump at 37, Gary Johnson at 12%, Jill Stein at actually between 1 and 2%. How do you how do you actually grow that and build that where the Green Party becomes a true third party?
Well, we have to go around the control of the corporate media, number one, to take our message directly to the American people. We're trying to do that. We have a challenge. As long as we have the two parties in collaboration with the corporate media deciding who gets exposed to the American people, it's going to be very difficult. But we have a apparatus in place, and we're organizing. We're going around that blockage, and we're taking our message directly to the people. If we, for example, had a chance to penetrate the control of the corporate entity that controls the debates and got a chance to debate, not only will we be competitive, Roland, we would win, because it's clear that the American people are looking for a change. We have two candidates that are the most distrusted, disliked ever in the history of politics. And if they had a chance to be exposed to something new, a new kind of message, a new vision, I think we would make history. But I think the corporate entities and the two corporate parties understand it, and that's why they've been systematically attempting to block us and block our message.
You talked about corporate media, but this is also a question of raising funds, being able to build an infrastructure. You see what Senator Bernie Sanders was able to do during the Democratic primary, but you've been unable to match that. How do you build that? Because if all of a sudden you are generating, like he went off to say, the average donation of $27 and raising $20, $30, $40, $50 million, now you have the capacity to run ads, the ability to be able to fund an infrastructure. And so what is the state of your campaign financially?
Well, we were able to take some advantage of the disaffection that many of the Sanders folks had with the Democrat Party when they moved toward the Green Party, and so our fundraising capacity increased somewhat, but we still have a challenge. And that's why it's so important for us to reach that 5% threshold, because when we reach that, then we have a chance to have public financing for the next go-around, and we're going to go again. So it's important for us to get that message out, that if people are really concerned about and want to build a real democracy, then we need to get as many votes as we can. And that will give us some degree of the ability to challenge the corporate monopoly, if we have those kinds of resources. But like you said, it's very important to have those kind of resources.
African Americans obviously have a strong affinity for this president. In an interview, you called him an Uncle Tom. That didn't sit well with lots of black folks.
Right.
Why did you say that?
Well, one, that was a sort of an internal conversation that before I became a candidate. But it was an assessment that I made that was based on my understanding of the kind of role that this man had, the potential he had as a change maker, and his failure to do that, to basically decide he was going to defend and protect concentrated white power, when he had a chance to, in fact, make some real changes for African Americans and other oppressed people in this country. So basically, anytime you make those kind of decisions, then you can be accused of being a 21st century version of Uncle Tom.
Question.
I have a question. I have the impression from reading your materials and from reading the Libertarian candidates' materials that your platform is very domestic U.S. and that the President of the United States has to have a global view.
Yes.
I'm not accusing you of not knowing about Aleppo, but I don't have any evidence from looking at your platform that you would be a president that could manage our international dilemmas as much as our domestic.
Well, I think if you looked at our platform closely, if you look at my writing specifically, you would know that up until I became a candidate, I was in fact a geopolitical analyst. So I have a pretty decent understanding of the world. So we wouldn't have any problem with having the ability to, in fact, manage the affairs of this state and to engage in international relations with states and peoples around this world. So, yeah, we know Aleppo, we know Syria, and have some very clear positions on all those issues.
But here's the thing.
Scott?
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I can agree as a Democrat and as a former chair of the D.C. Democratic Party with everything you say about the monopolization and all that comes along with true democracy, with the Green Party and the Independent Party. At the same time, though, it's going to take time for you to build that. And I want my vote to count now. And while I want my candidate to win, I want my vote to count. And I don't want the Green Party taking votes away from my Democratic candidate, right? So how do you respond to that? Because even if I agree with you, I want my vote to count. And the Green Party is not going to win this election.
But your vote counts. Your vote would count.
By voting my conscience may count, but I want real access, I want real power, and that comes from voting for a Democrat or a Republican. And in my case, the Democratic candidate.
I say that your vote doesn't count when you in fact vote for a Democrat, because the Democrats are not going to challenge concentrated power. That if you're really serious and committed to building an alternative, then you have no other choice but to support the Green Party. You're right, we are building, and we're building for power. So it's not a protest vote, it's a vote for building power. And we say that it's not just about voting in November, it's about building an alternative popular structure, independent politics here in this country.
Yeah. Eugene?
Well, that's interesting. Well, first and foremost, I'm not a person, I guess, that I haven't defended President Obama, but I will say, when it comes to recent presidents that have done amazing things for African Americans, I think the president probably tops that list. I don't got the time, I mean, show me another president that's, commuted, over 1,000 citizens of African Americans that were wrongly, convicted of, nonviolent drug offenses. My question to you guys is, what's your economic plan? I'm a Republican. I believe that, free market enterprise, helps produce jobs, produces prosperity, produces wealth for our citizens. What's your guys' economic plan?
Well, I'm going to tell you, one thing about Obama that we do disagree with is the fact that we don't see the evidence that he was better than LBJ, for example.
I think
we see
different times, different contexts.
But the conditions we face seem to be persistent. They seem to be the same. That we have levels of poverty that almost matches what we had in the mid 1960s. So where was the special programs to address urban poverty? Where was the special programs to bail out African-American homeowners? Where was the program to address the astronomical unemployment among young people in these cities and in rural areas? There was no specific policy to deal with not only African-Americans, but the working class here in this country. So even the Affordable Care Act, we still have 28 million people without health insurance. It was Obama that doubled the bail on our dear sister Assata Shakur. It was Obama that prevented or tried to prevent Aristide coming back to Haiti. It was Obama that gave the cover to the U.S. state not to participate in the Durban process. So where is the evidence that there was something really progressive about this administration? In fact, it was the most backward administration that I think we've seen in quite some time. And morally, it has undermined the status and the position of African Americans like no other administration, because now we have more conservative African Americans than we ever had before.
Well, I think that's that. Whoa.
You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Well, I actually think it's an amazing thing we have more conservative African Americans than we ever had before. I think one of the issues that the African American community has had is that there's been a monopoly on African American political power. You need activity in both parties to actually affect some change in the city.
Comment.
We say that basically if people are concerned about democracy, if they're concerned about real change, you have no other choice but to, in fact, to be a part of the Green Party campaign,
But you got
the Green
survivability
Party,
first, right?
Green Party mission.
General Baraka, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, election, of course, 28 days.